It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's live multi-channel engagement webinar, unless you are listening in to the recording. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today. We look forward to spending the next 20-25 minutes with you. Today's webinar is part of a series of Ignition webinars where we're exploring some of the key challenges we're facing in the life sciences and showcasing how to concretely address these challenges. I'm happy to say that we are more than 150 people signed up for the webinar here. So, and with companies covering a wide spectrum of companies in the industry. So, thanks very much for joining us today. It seems that the multi-channel is definitely on top of mind. I believe most of you are familiar with Agnitio. For 15 years, we've developed digital communication solutions for the life sciences. The session today is centered around one of the big pharma challenges, which is how we leverage multi-channel to strengthen our HCP partnerships and thereby enable better treatment outcomes. So today, we'll look at how multi-channel enables new ways to extend your customer HCP engagements. After a short introduction, where we'll share some overall views on multi-channel, we'll showcase how Agnitio's multi-channel HCP engagement solution works in a live demo. At the demo, we'll also demonstrate the new Rainmaker email. Rainmaker email enables your customer-facing staff to share compliant, pre-approved emails when it matters most to your HCP partners. To present Rainmaker, I have with me today Mr. Luis Rodriguez. Luis is a client director and has been with Agnitio for the past 5 years, where he's been working closely together with our partners in the life sciences. So many of you may be familiar with Luis already. Before Luis joined Agnitio, he worked at Grünenthal in Germany. So Luis is very much familiar with the challenges that you are facing. And also he knows our products really, really well. So we should be in capable hands here today. Luis, thanks so much for joining. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Matt. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Luis. We'll get back to you in a few minutes. My name is Mads Bjarne Kornbæk. I'll be your host today. I'm a marketing director at Agnitio, and I'm pretty certain that I have the same drive and face similar challenges as many of you. That is, how do we make the best investments in multi-channel and content in order to provide value that matters? And how do we measure that it works, not least? So one practicality before we get started. Throughout the session, you can share your comments and questions in the chat box that you see on the right-hand side, or you can use Twitter with the hashtag MCMPharma. We'll respond to the questions in the Q&A we have at the end of the session. To start with, let me explore multi-channel a bit and also present some statistics that connect to today's topic, and I thought you'd find relevant as well. For some time, we've talked about the shift from sales to service to address the increased complexity in healthcare. I recently heard that one of the big pharma companies won a tender in one of the regions here in Denmark, primarily because they were offering individual support and services to patients as part of the deal. To me, that's really a great example that products are just part of the solution, and that the support and communications that we provide is essential to get the right treatment outcomes. I'm sure you're familiar with that trend. So what it also means is that our multi-channel engagements, they do matter. So when speaking of HCP engagement today, we acknowledge that interactions span broader and also include hospital management, governments, and payers, besides from our, should we say, usual suspects, doctors, nurses, and specialists. It also means that multi-channel must support all our customer-facing staff that speak to the different decision makers or stakeholders. This would include traditional sales reps, medical reps, market access, and so on. You're very much familiar with that. Now, let's look at how multi-channel engagement strategy, how that looks. This graphic that you see here, it shows the adoption process for a doctor. At every new encounter, at every touch point, the doctor would get valuable information to increase his or her knowledge level, whether it's information about treatment area or specific treatment method. In this case, we have a rep that starts up a conversation face-to-face. Following the call, he may use the email channel to share additional compliant information that they did not get to cover during the call. The doctor now has the possibility of accessing this information on his or her own. Now the doctor is invited for an educational webinar run by one of our medical reps or MSLs, or indeed engage in an e-learning program to extend the engagement and also further strengthen the relationship. At our next face-to-face encounter, we would know much more about the doctor's interests and may discuss how to meet their patient's needs. So we immediately share materials that could be used on demand in the patient communications. Maybe that would be as an app. So as the graphic shows, at each step, the HCP gets new relevant information to increase their overall knowledge level. Now, I was talking to a close colleague yesterday. She suffers from severe migraine attacks. And what would really help her was if she could get more proactive support from her doctor when there were new migraine drugs or disease support materials available. So empowering her doctor to receive and share relevant information would really help in her case. There is a big opportunity for pharma, but do doctors really want our help? In a recent research project we did, it was clear that HCPs still rely on pharma to support them, as long as the content is educational and meets individual needs, which this statement from Dr. Shia also emphasizes. And as all other consumers, doctors have their individual channel preferences, and each channel naturally has its merits. Connecting channels provides a great opportunity for extending engagements and also for providing a more holistic customer experience. Interesting enough, one of the favorite channels among HCPs is email. In a minute, Louis will walk you through how the Rainmaker email works and how it ties in with your work process and regulatory constraints. Before we do that, a few statistics that I found useful. So on the screen, you can see that according to a 2016 survey, physicians in the US, 53% of physicians, they wanted to receive their information from pharma via email, which was a huge winning margin over sales rep, 18%, and direct mail and website, 12%. And similarly, according to a study by EPG Health among HCPs in the UK, 80% believed that email represented a great deal of value to them. In comparison, only 47% said the same thing about meetings with company reps. So there is a big opportunity to extend engagements and maximize impact if channels are used and combined in the right way. That's how we see it. Now, before handing you over to Louis, allow me to ask 3 really quick questions. And basically, we do this to help us all get an understanding of the digital adoption in the audience, and also a glance into how our peers, how they see digital landscape evolving. So now I'm going to run the first poll. First poll is about which digital channels you're using in your sales communications today. And you can select among the following. So if you please make your votes. And I'm counting down 3, 2, 1, and thank you so much. What we see is that e-detailing face-to-face is really one of the big channels that we are using today, but to some extent we're also using other channels. Now let's go to question number 2. This is a statement, maybe a little proactive. We're good at connecting and applying data across channels. You can select one of the following statements: strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. If you please make your vote. And I'm counting down from 3, 2, 1, and thank you so much. So what we see is that, well, we don't all agree that we are really good at connecting and applying data across channels. So there's definitely room for improvement. So we'll tap more into that later on. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And the final poll question before we move on to Luis. Now we're looking a little into the future. What is your top priority in the next 2 years? And now you can select one of the following: data and connectivity, content, channels and reach, impact on treatment outcomes, return on investment. And if I'm counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and thank you. So what we see here is there's a bit of a split, but channels and reach is definitely very important in the next couple of years. So that's interesting enough, and of course one of the reasons why we're here and addressing multi-channel. So back to thank you so much for participating in your and forwarding your thoughts. That's really insightful for me. Hopefully it is for you too, Luis. Now I'll hand it over to you to demonstrate exactly how we see it and how it shows in Rainmaker. Remember, all of you, that you can still share your questions in the chat box, or you can send them by Twitter, and we'll respond to it by the end of the session. Luis, are you there?
Okay, yes, right here. Thank you very much, Matt. Very interesting to see in our audience that we still rely, heavily on that face-to-face interaction with e-detailing, and that of course our challenge is how do we cover, increasingly growing HCP populations with increasingly decreasing sales reps. So reach is definitely one of our challenges, and I'll get to cover some of that from the multi-channel perspective. So special thanks to those of you joining from other regions. Some of you are getting up really early or staying up late, so I appreciate that, and I will do my utmost to keep this brief so we can cover some more of your questions at the end as well. And today, to tie back to your introduction, Matt, and tangibilize what digital could look like, I will show you an example of a fictional multi-channel campaign. It revolves around Zain Pharmaceuticals and a fake product that we came up with called Xanadril. Xanadril is for migraine patients. So Xanadril, in this particular case, it has been in the market for quite some time, and the dosage unit has always been tablets. Now, a new delivery method has been approved, and we will launch the liquid formula. We hear from market access and from our own demand studies that we have a lot of potential in capturing some of our competitors' market share, as the clinical studies show very positive results. It performs above and beyond as tablets do. So marketing has decided to launch a complete multi-channel campaign to support this launch. So in today's case, I will explain, or more likely show you, how our brand manager, Helen Miller here, has prepared multiple elements for the campaign. She has prepared a symposium with a key opinion leader that will explain the benefits of this new liquid drug. And we have to invite some of our main targets, some of the main HCPs. She has also prepared the clinical studies to support with scientific proof how different the new drug is. She has prepared content, digital content for the sales reps to deliver to the HCPs, either face-to-face or remotely. And she has also prepared content for the patient so that they better understand how this would affect their symptoms and the benefits and questions that they could have. So we have a wide array of different pieces of content. So we have to make sure that we put them into the right channels. The sales rep, John Smith, in my example today, will be facing a neurologist. And he has to choose from these options how to deliver each one and what would make the most impact during his interactions. I will be going through the entire presentation, but if you have any questions, please make sure to type them into the chat box, and I'll be happy to take them at the end. Here you can see my iPad. I've just projected it here. And now, according to our story, I will be taking the role of John Smith, our sales rep. The sales rep is going to meet with Dr. Jones. He has never met him before. However, some of my colleagues as a sales rep have been introduced to Dr. Jones and have shown our previous product Zenadrill as a tablet. So before I meet Dr. Jones, I'm going to click here on our Rainmaker Engager app. And I would like to see what my colleagues have discussed with Dr. Jones in the past. Here I have an overview of all of the calls I have performed and all of the data from my doctors. So as a sales rep, it's pretty useful to understand what have they answered to our previous surveys, what are the key topics, what are they prescribing the most. And in this particular case, I would like to hear from Dr. Jones. There's one below. And I can see that Dr. Jones, he is not satisfied with the current markets. He's prescribing Relpax the most. And being a neurologist, of course, head and torso are some of his main concerns. So with that in mind, I will now go ahead and go see my doctor. As I prepare to go in, I can see here on the left-hand side those pieces of content that we were discussing earlier. We have some that are intended for the patient, some clinical studies, our commercial presentation, and some emails that each tie into the campaign. One of them is an invitation to the symposium, another one, the clinical study that was already approved by medical and it's already been through our regulatory process. And at the bottom, I can see that I have a call. In my CRM, I have already scheduled this visit to Dr. Jones. So I already have pre-selected the time and the presentation that I will be showing. So as I go in front of the doctor, I introduce myself and off we go. I will launch this piece of content. And here I can see some of those questions that I know he has already answered. I know that when we move some of the data here, we're capturing every piece of the interaction, every second in every slide, every answer to every survey. So for this call, I don't need to show it. I can go straight into the actual information of the new liquid Zenadrill. As I pitch to my doctor, it is very common that doctors ask for some of this information. We often hear from our sales reps, and you've probably heard it as well, that the doctors are asking for the material. Can I have that slide? Can you send me that? Can you send me the overall prescribing information? And from where I'm standing, right in front of the doctor, it's very easy to do so. If I simply double tap, I can just click on share, select those slides that the doctor was interested in. If there is someone else in the office, if there's another doctor also attending, I can add them here on the right-hand side with a simple plus. But for this time, I'm just going to send it to Edward Jones. Often or not, they also ask, you know, this is great material. Do you have something for my patient? And just as easily, we can do that. If I select Dr. Jones, you will notice there's a sharing function here that we can enable for the content that could be sent out to the doctor. So if I click on this first piece of content at the top, I will be sending some material for the patient to better understand migraine. Here's 15 tips for migraineurs, we call it. And as I say goodbye to Dr. Jones, I also mention, by the way, doctor, we have this symposium coming up here in the area. It will be next month. Would you be interested in attending? The doctor says, that sounds great. Please send me that invitation. And I have that email here ready to go. And I can do this as I walk out of the office or in my own time as a sales rep. But it does decrease on the time that I have to spend drafting an email. And most importantly, this has been through a regulatory process. So we make sure that the claims that we make in this invite are true and truly convey the key messages that sales reps sometimes miss to deliver. So for now, my call has finalized, and I've sent everything I needed to Dr. Edward Jones. So now let's look at it from his perspective. I will close my iPad, and now I will take the role as Dr. Jones. Here, let us take a second to adjust, but I am now the doctor back at home. Today I received a sales rep. I requested a multitude of information, and as I've checked through my emails, I can see that everything I requested is here. Here I can see that John Smith sent me a piece of content, and it will be available either if I have an iPad as in the App Store, or it will be available as a microsite. And here we go. So as you saw me requesting the sales rep for some slides earlier, I have them now available on my computer. Now, I could have opened this either on my computer or on my phone. It doesn't really matter. It's opening on a browser, so I have this available on demand. All I have to do is click on that link. I will show you in a second how it looks like when I have it in my own app, but for now, let's see the rest of the messages. I was also invited to join this symposium. I can see here, dear Edward Jones, here's when the symposium will happen. You can sign up here. And something interesting, help us choose the main topic for this symposium. So they are asking a bit of a survey here. So for the first time, I get to choose what I would like to hear in the upcoming event. If I click in there, my response has been registered. Now, bearing in mind that this is an email sent immediately after the call, we're still capturing some of the data, some of the interaction with the doctor. The doctor is simply clicking to see what is available to him. However, we are capturing every piece of this interaction, and we will see how that data looks like in a minute. I can see from another sales rep, from a different sales rep, I've received a clinical study. If I click on it, voila, I receive it. So it makes it very easy for me to to access that information immediately after a sales rep has been visiting, or a medical science liaison, or whomever is authorized to send me information as a doctor. There's also another tool, which we call ShareDoc, which you can see here at the top. ShareDoc has been designed specifically for doctors and patients. At the first login, it asks me to add in an email and a password. And once I do that, all of the content that I've been sent to that email automatically shows up here. So if I don't want to go to my email, all I have to do is log on to ShareDoc, and I have access to those materials. Now, as Dr. Jones, I'm able to show this to my patients, review them, everything in one place, or most importantly, if there's something that I would like to share with my patient, it's the same procedure. I simply click on this button at the top of every piece of content and simply type in the email of my patient. And the same process will follow. My patient will receive an email, they click on it, and they can either see the content or open ShareDoc and receive any follow-ups in there. We'll close this for now. And there we go. As you could see, the multiple pieces of the content show me a different part of the campaign. Some of them were destined for the face-to-face, others took place after the visit, whereas I was sitting at home, or if I'm reviewing in front of my patient in my own time. So now let's have a look at the channel performance. Here, I'm stepping back from our case, and now we're able to look at the data. What have we captured throughout these interactions? Now, I am the brand manager, looking at how my campaign is performing. And here you can see that I can evaluate either on a sales rep per sales rep basis. How are they performing? What channels are they using? What is their success ratio? Or I can look at it from a contact perspective. I can see, going back to Edward Jones, that he has open, of course, we've used him for a while, so a multitude of emails. He has, this gives us sort of the open rate. We can see which presentations this particular doctor has been exposed to, and we can see in which channels he has interacted with our brand. We can see that it was partly face-to-face, partly email, partly remote, and partly microsite. And this way, as a brand manager, I can make those decisions of where should I keep investing and what's going to give me the best return on attention and return on investment. So this is just a very small example as to what we can do with a digital campaign and tying it up together, even if it's through different channels. And as an introduction, I think this would be a good place to stop, and I would very much like to hear from the audience instead, and to address some of your questions. So I guess I send it back to you, Mats.
Thanks so much, Luis. Thanks for the insights. I hope that everybody here found it useful. I have some questions from the audience indeed, and do all dig in if anybody else still have questions. First question, Luis. Are we able to track email campaigns in the same CRM tools used for e-detailing face-to-face?
If I can use the same tool to track both the email and the face-to-face?
Yes. So is it connected? Basically, that's my interpretation.
Yes, it is connected. So it depends on which systems you're using. What I just showed you now with the Rainmaker solution, everything is integrated. Everything is being sent and tracked at the same level. So meaning if it's a face-to-face interaction with a specific contact, and then we send to that contact another email or content in a microsite or an invitation to ShareDoc, it's all very much connected. Also, if you remember at the beginning of the visit, I could see that I had in my calendar already an appointment that was coming in from the CRM. An external CRM is sending us the data, and we're able to integrate it with Rainmaker and make sure that we match that up. An external contact with the data that is being captured from the different channels. And just as we make that integration for contacts, we could also make it for other types of data. So it's really a customizable way of looking at the campaign.
Okay, thanks so much, Luis. Good answer. Two more questions. I know that we're running a little late here. If I have other channels deployed, can I merge with your data?
Yes. So as I just mentioned, contacts is one of the pieces of information that we can integrate, but there may also be some other metrics. If your CRM is, and I think that's typically the case with most of the pharma we've discussed in the past, all of the different channels that are already deployed send some feedback back into the CRM. So we can either pull it from there or connect or try to connect directly with that external channel. So it depends on which setup it is, but absolutely possible to bring in the data and merge it for the reporting purposes.
Thanks so much, Luis. There are a number of questions. I'm just going to take the last one because we need to round off. The other questions, we'll definitely get back to them following the session here. Last question: can physicians share documents with patients without the ShareDoc app downloaded?
It is possible. So as you saw from the doctor perspective, he received a link, and that link either opens up in a browser, so you can see that, so that you can see the content directly, or if you already have ShareDoc, it shows up there. So we cannot restrict the doctor from sharing that link with the patient, and from a compliance perspective, it's also okay to do so. So it is possible.
Okay, thanks so much, and thanks again to everybody for asking some really good, interesting questions. And we'll, as I said, get back to the questions we didn't get to answer right now. Just to quickly recap before we round off, we've seen how multi-channel approach empowers a holistic and meaningful customer experience. Supporting doctors in the way they prefer strengthens our relationships and increases the likelihood that our treatments are being used in the way that impacts patients and thereby outcomes. If you would like to discuss your business needs, dig deeper into how Rainmaker Multichannel can support you in growing HCP engagements in your company, please get in touch, and Luis and I will be delighted to exchange ideas and share experiences. Also, if you're interested in digital patient engagement, we've partnered up with IFA Pharma and are putting together a powerful expert panel, including thought leaders from Teva and AstraZeneca to discuss how pharma can get involved in bringing power to the patient. It's on the 23rd of February. We're running late. When the session ends, you'll be asked a couple of questions about the session and what other topics could be relevant for you to help meet your business objectives. Hopefully you have a minute to fill in and help us understand your needs even better and how we can support you going forward. So thanks again to everyone for participating today. Thanks to you, Luis. Pleasure to have you here, and see you next time.